Hey, it's Jennifer Lawhon here with your monthly market update. So we're going to talk about what's been going on. What's happening in the current housing market? It seems to be changing every month. If you notice, some good news happened. Mortgage rates continue, obviously they continue to fluctuate, but you notice it's gone down. You can see in the orange on August 4th, we went from 5.3 just at the end of July to 4.99, so just under 5. Now, people keep asking, are we in a recession? Well, let's first talk about what is a recession. So the National Bureau of Economic Research says that it is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. So that's one thing we'd have to look at. And some might say that is happening now. Now, here's another thing, and again, had to pull up some data here. Is a recession 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth? Because that's been discussed. You might not have ever read that. I learned that not too long ago, actually. But if you look at the last recorded recessions that we have, so you can see starting in 1949 over here, what happened is that we had 2 consecutive quarters those years of negative growth. And those were recessions. And you can see this has happened with all of them. So first quarter, we did see slow. Now we're waiting for the end of quarter 2, and then that will be our real indication of whether we are in a recession. So to be determined, TBD. What about around the corner? So again, percentage of economists surveyed who believe we will see a recession in the next 12 months. Now, look at all the way in July of 2020. Only 12% thought we'd be in a recession. Now go up to July of 2022, so last month, almost half now are saying we're pretty sure we're going to see a recession in the next 12 months. So this is something we're definitely going to want to keep our eyes out on. But now let's talk about the housing market. How would the housing market be impacted by a recession? So let's say there is a recession. Recession does not necessarily mean falling prices. There are only 2 times when this happened. You can see in 91, but that was less than a 2% decline, so that's not an issue. And then in 2008, but that was the housing crisis that we hit. That was due to poor loan practices. We had faulty appreciations. There were a lot of issues going on at that time. But look at the other 4 recessions that we've had. Prices did not fall. In fact, they increased. So something just to keep in mind on that. A recession typically does mean falling mortgage rates. Look what happened in the last 6 recessions, starting back in 1980. This is how much the mortgage rates fell. And in 2020, they fell an entire percent. So typically, that would be good news, especially if you are a buyer, because you might end up seeing eventually lower mortgage rates, because you know we've seen them going up this year, a big increase. Fortune says, over the past 5 recessions, mortgage rates have fallen an average of 1.8 percentage points from the peak seen during the recession to the trough. And in many cases, they continue to fall after the fact, as it takes some time to turn things around, and even when the recession is technically over. So why should we not be too worried that we're going to see a crash in the housing market? First of all, there's not enough homes for sale. Total housing inventory registered at the end of June was 1.2 million, just over that, units. Unsold inventory sites at a 3-month supply at a current sales price. So you can see here, this was during, see the red, this was during that housing crash. Okay, this is our inventory. Now, look down here, 2020 up to this year in green, we do not have enough inventory, and that's what's causing another issue here. If you look, here's your dotted line just to kind of show you where we are right now compared to those other months. What about monthly new residential construction? This is from June, the latest report that we have. And you can see how many building permits there have been. This starts from July of last year, and then you can see in the middle is where you have January. Oops, went the wrong way. There we go. And then you have housing starts. So how many housings did start up? Then you have under construction at the end of the period. And then housing units completed. So you can see we've had a bunch of building permits, a ton, over 1.6 million. How many of them completed? A little over 1.3 million. So we are still doing good, just a little bit of a slowdown. What about lending standards? Well, they're still good. Look at when we had the housing bubble, okay? We're looking at the historical data for the mortgage credit availability index. Now look down here now. The standards are still tight. They are still under control for the loaning standards. Not so much during the 2006-2007 years. Look at the foreclosure activity. This again, during that housing crash that we hit, look at the amount of foreclosures. My goodness, 2.9 million in 2010. But look over here in 2021, 151,000. That's the lowest since 2005. So we've had a good amount of saving homes for being in foreclosure. So you can see we've had a nice steady decline. Rick Sharga says, foreclosure activity across the United States continued its slow, steady climb back to pre-pandemic levels in the first half of 2022. While overall foreclosure activity is still running significantly below historic averages, the dramatic increase in foreclosure starts suggests that we may be back to normal levels by sometime in early 2023. That is excellent news for us. Look at the month's inventory of homes. Now remember, a buyer's market, we talked about. A buyer's market is when you have more homes on the market than you have buyers. And a seller's market is when you have more buyers in the market, but not enough homes. You can see when we were in buyer markets and when we've been in seller markets. But notice it coming up here. You can see where we were kept going down deeper into a seller's market due to that lack of inventory, and we had so many buyers. Now today you can see it starting to go up, so who knows what's going to happen. We could end up hitting the neutral market. So what's ahead for the rest of 2022? Mortgage rate projections. Okay, so we talked about, for a while they projected to keep going up. You can see that they're looking what the projection is. I don't know why that keeps doing that today. I think my mouse is faulty. Average of all four, okay. Notice that we're projecting a decrease. So right now, we're not projecting to continue to see these mortgage rates increasing. Joel Kahn says, there could be a potential silver lining for the market, he added, as stabilizing mortgage rates and rising inventory may bring some buyers back to the market during the second half of the year. Look at the home price forecast. You've got our usual 7. When we average them, we're talking about maybe a 10.3%. These are all increases. So nobody's really forecasting a decrease, and that's good news. Mark Zandi says, I don't think national housing prices will decline in a meaningful way, but there will be some price declines across the country. So in other words, not this huge crash, but we could see some decline, but it won't be anything major, at least so far. That's what we're seeing. What about existing home sales? Look at, okay, the gray. Remember we said 2017 to 2019, that was pre-pandemic years, so those were our typical real estate years. 2020 and 2021 were not our typical real estate years. We saw a huge surge in home sales. June, we're at 5.1, so not too far from what our typical average is. So I think we're starting to get back maybe into, we're going to start to normalize as far as the real estate market goes. What about total home sales forecast? So you can see here, this is in blue is January forecast, and then the July forecast, it went down a little bit as far as what they were expecting, what is being anticipated. So what are 3 reasons that you should buy a home now? Well, first, there are fewer multiple offer scenarios, and that is the case here too. You're not getting a lot now where you have, 10 offers at once and there's bidding wars. There's actually fewer of that happening now. You can kind of see in the data from April to June, we went from getting an average of 5.5 offers to 3.4 offers. There are fewer homes selling above asking price right now. That's good. Look at in April, 61%, and in June it dropped down to 51%. Supply of homes for sale is growing. So from April to June, we actually saw an increase in inventory. All good news. Hopefully, like I said, we're going to start to normalize when it comes to the real estate market. Now let's talk about home sales. This is just a graph. It might be hard to see everything on there, but it's just average days on the market starting in March of 2019 to recently. And if you look at June all the way down here, 14 days is the average days on a market for the house. So homes are still going pretty quick. You got your existing home sales. Again, we talked about that, right? Lack of inventory. So we're not seeing as much. We saw a decline recently year over year from last year to this year. Overall in the U.S., a negative 14.2%. So that would be your decline. New home sales, and again, we keep talking about this every month, they are doing very well. If you want to just know the distribution and prices, the majority, which is 18%, still not a big percent compared to the rest, is between the 300,000 to 400,000 range. New homes are always selling fast. I don't think I've stopped saying this every month because it's still happening. You can just kind of see a graph of the median, which is typically that middle number of months from completion to sold. If you look here, starting this year, it's gotten a little quicker with how long it's taken to complete. I know when we built our home last year, it took 8 months, but it's getting better. Total home sales, you can just see here, 2021 is that lighter blue, 2022 is the darker blue, and obviously we only have data right now nationally up to June. And you can see we've had less total home sales this year, but again, last year was kind of like that odd real estate year where there was just a boom in home sales. Pending home sales so the black line is your historical healthy level. Pending home sales, we're doing pretty good. So nothing to complain about. What about home prices? Sale price of existing homes, you can see the South. Look at us down here, especially Florida. Florida, there's just a ton of new home constructions. People want to move to Florida, I guess. It is beautiful. It is beautiful, especially the winters. What about change in sales? Well, there has actually been an increase, look at this, in the $500,000 and over for sales and a decrease when you're going below $500,000. Year over year, percent change in price. Currently, it's 18.3, but the forecast is 4.3. Again, slowing down with our appreciation. And then, of course, there's housing inventory. If you look at the change in inventory, you can see the average is 19.9%, so we can pretty much say 20%. And you can see which states seem to have more, an increase in inventory. But Florida, 22.8%. We've been doing pretty good, which I'm happy to see that. Months in inventory of homes for sale. So over the last 12 months, you can kind of see the graph. We've seen some growth in here in June. You saw a decline from December to March, which we had talked about before. And then your year-over-year inventory levels. Obviously, we've talked about that there's been a decrease, right? A lack of inventory, but look at June. Look at June. I just have to say that again. Things are looking up. New home monthly inventory. They have been always doing well. Like I said, real estate market was a big boom for the new home construction. And you can kind of see the monthly inventory. So 2022 would be the lighter year. You can see that there's actually been an increase in inventory compared to last year. All right, so now it is time for the Orlando update. Okay, so let's start with the Orlando sales. As usual, the blue is in 2021 and the green is for 2022. And we've talked about how in the beginning of the year, we actually had more sales for the winter part than we did last year. But then you can see we kind of had some decreases happening in the spring, and we've seen that in the summer as well. So if you look at July, which is the most recent data we have, we actually had less sales in July than we did in July of last year. Now, let's talk about the average sale price, because we've been talking about that, how if you look in the green for this year, we have seen every single month had an increase in the average sale price until July. So all the way up until June, we saw that. And then July, we had a slight decrease. Wasn't anything huge, but we did see a slight decrease in the average sale price for July. Anxious to see what's going to happen for the rest of the year. All right, guys, starting in September 2nd, the fall and seller buyer guides will be out. Again, those are always free. If you want a copy, just email us, or you can go to lawhonhometeam.com and fill out the Contact Us form. Any questions, give us a call, or again, visit us at lawhonhometeam.com. If you're enjoying our videos, please like and subscribe to our channel.